What's new? Hello again. This is not my place. But watch this. Movie magic. We begin this story in the summer of 2023. Tottenham sell Harry Kane for a massive sum of cash, but despite losing their all-time leading scorer, Spurs still managed a 5th place finish thanks to new manager Ange Postecoglou and his highly attractive attacking football. That season was year 1 of the rebuild, and if you're finishing 5th in the first year of your rebuild, I mean, that's a future to look forward to. And so Spurs built off that success. They brought in midfielder Lucas Bergvall for 10 million. In came another midfielder, an 18-year-old Archie Gray for 41.2 million from Leeds. Tottenham then bolstered the depth on the wings with Wilson Odobert for 29.3 million. And finally, the club added an actual striker in Dominic Solanke. Solanke broke out, scoring 19 goals for Bournemouth last season, and now with the proper poacher, Ange Ball would unleash its final form. Get it? Because Solanke is a huge weeb. By the way, I told you guys to send and tag me in photos of what you were eating while you're watching my videos. We did get quite a bit of submissions last time, and I can't really show all of them, so here are my favorites. Here's someone eating Indomie. Lovely combo indeed. Big classic here. Nice sandwich. Many layers to it. Toasted as well. Scrumdiddlyumptious. And then finally we have this person, whose stomach I will be praying for. If you'd like to be a part of this, I guess, you can tag me on Twitter or Instagram. Tottenham began their campaign with a match versus Leicester, where they went up early on, but then conceded to a guy whose diet consisted of 2 Red Bulls and a cigarette. Spurs then returned home to face Everton and blew them out to collect their first win. They then followed that up with losses to Newcastle and their fathers. It was looking to be a 3rd straight loss after the early bird gets the worm-ass team open the scoring. However, Ange's men did well to fight back, came back, and won 3-1. Spurs carried this momentum into Old Trafford, and with every goal scored, Sir Jim Ratcliffe docked 50 cents from the janitor's salary.
It's a good diary!
Finally, it looked like Ange Ball was back to its best, as Spurs went 2-0 up early on versus Brighton. But lads, it's Tottenham, said the coach from the 2nd division of German football. One international break later, the Lily Whites take easy care of West Ham with a 4-1 blowout, but then the very next week they lose to 18th place Crystal Palace. Nonetheless, Spurs bounced back with a statement victory versus 4th place Aston Villa. It might have taken some time, but now Tottenham could get back to their winning ways and hop into the top 4. And they lost to Ipswich at home the following week. Nevertheless, Spurs bounced back with yet another statement victory in Manchester. It might have taken some time, but Tottenham were only 3 points away from the top 4. Now they could get back to winning ways and return. And then Tottenham go their next 3 games winless. Notwithstanding, Spurs bounced back, scoring 5 first-half goals against Southampton. Sure, that's basically like playing the Scunthorpe Children's Hospital 11, but now Tottenham could use this result and soar up to the top 4. Don't you just love playing 3 days after a grueling cup match, especially when your next opponents are the league leaders? Oh, and what's that? Half your team is in dire need of rest and the other half is injured? Oh, joy! The very next week saw the men in white, no, not that white, go up north to play Nottingham, and the backline would do its best tree impression. Spurs then returned home to face 17th place Wolves, and thanks to some awful marking, they concede just 7 minutes in. But this is 17th place Wolves, okay? No matter how bad Spurs' defense may be, at least Ange Ball is still cooking up top. I stand corrected. Nevertheless, Brennan Johnson comes to Tottenham's aid just before halftime, only for the defense to look like a bunch of sick patients in the back.
You've got mail.
Wait, no, that's not what I meant. Yeah, if you thought injuries and exhaustion were bad enough, fuck it. Let's just throw the bird flu in there to wipe half the squad out. Son, Madison, Bissouma, oh, also another midfielder was suspended in Bentancur. So now Tottenham was forced to field a double pivot who had only played together for 127 minutes total. However, despite it all, Spurs would find the lead through the weed. But it's like God doesn't even want this team to win because they would concede not even 2 minutes later because of a blatant handball. And then they gave up another goal.
Played these games before! I said I played these games before!
Now up to date, Spurs find themselves in the bottom half of the table, having earned just 24 points. They have also lost more games than they have won, and a lot of that is thanks to the abysmal defense that has conceded the 8th most goals so far. In fact, Ipswich Town has conceded just 5 more. Keep in mind, at this point of the season, Spurs had 39 points and were sitting 5th. So what went wrong? We will start like we did with Manchester City. The injuries. Goalkeeper Guglielmo Vicario has been out since November and won't be back until late February. In his place came Fraser Forster, who is playing like a reverse Uncle Drew, where it's actually an old guy cosplaying as a younger person. But then he got injured, so then Spurs were forced to play their third string goalkeeper, Brandon Austin. And to give him credit, he's a lot better than Forster. The defense, though, is an even bigger nightmare. Spurs have been without Ben Davies, Destiny Udogie, and their two main center-backs, Christian Romero and Mickey van de Ven. So all you have left in terms of center-backs is Radu Dragusin, and he's not really ready yet. The wild thing, however, is Dragusin is being outperformed by an 18-year-old who is actually playing out of position. Archie Gray's versatility has been a rare bright spot for this team, and fans should be very excited once most of the squad is healthy again. Another player who has been a silver lining in the clouds, Jed Spence, who has been providing Spurs more creativity as a wingback. Other injured players include Wilson Odobert, who the club literally just signed, and Richarlison, which isn't much of a shock there. Spurs also have a wonder kid by the name of Mikey Moore. Sounds like something out of a 2000s Disney movie. But he's been out with a virus since October. There have also been a lot of players that look visibly tired as well, considering Spurs still also have European football along with the cup competitions and the league competitions. And this has been detrimental to some players' performances. Son, for example, looks exhausted, and you can see in the way he's played over the last couple of months. He just doesn't look the same. Now on to my next point. Ange's system. When Ange first came in, his playstyle was a big breath of fresh air for Spurs fans after they were subjected to Conte and Mourinho ball. He gave Spurs new life with the idea that this team could focus less on defense and more on chance creating and goal scoring. In other words, he's like the Mike D'Antoni of football. Last year, Spurs scored 74 goals, keep in mind they didn't have Harry Kane, and so far this season, they actually have the second best attack. That said, there are still some underlying issues, one of which is Ange's adamancy to play a high defensive line. Because when the midfield loses the ball, that can create chaos for the defensive line, especially since sometimes the wingbacks will be very up forward, and the only last remaining defense is just the two center backs. And while they do have players that have speed to deal with certain things like this, they don't really have them right now because they're injured. So now you just got players who aren't as familiar with the system and are still honestly getting used to the pace of the Prem in general. Despite these issues though, Ange has gone on record numerous times saying he refuses to change it up, which I think is important to stick to your philosophy because you don't want to confuse your players or have your players think you have no confidence. But I think there should be a balance between your playstyle and also at the same time other different playstyles that you could use, that way you don't get exposed as easily. Sure, maybe his players showed unwavering commitment to the system against Liverpool, but they still conceded 5 goals. Not to mention the team was exhausted, numerous key players were out, and you are literally playing the best team in the league. I mean, why stick to such a demanding playstyle when your players are knackered, when you could have just been a little more pragmatic? I know the saying is that you will never be bored during a Tottenham match, but not every single game has to be exciting for them. Now, what could also help this problem significantly is a number 6 that's defensively solid and a good deep line playmaker. New signing Archie Gray could fit this mold really well, but right now he's too busy playing out of position because the club didn't think to bring another defender in the summer. And throughout this season, this has been a problem all over the board because Ange can only do so much when he's not being backed enough. In other news, water is wet. Because even though it was so obvious that the team was in dire need of reinforcements in many positions, barely any were fulfilled, and now Spurs are paying a massive price for it. Now, this has been a problem that has plagued Spurs during the Daniel Levy and Enoch ownership since 2001. I feel like you should kind of give the ownership a little bit of leeway during the time that they were building the stadium. Maybe not the 2018-19 transfer windows though, that might have been a little too much. But there's not much of an excuse now, and it seems like players are getting very sick of this because, you know, they're the ones on the front line. Just recently, Christian Romero criticized the club's lack of spending, adding, quote, "Man City competes every year. You see how Liverpool strengthens its squad. Chelsea strengthens its squad, doesn't do well, strengthens again. And now they're seeing results. Those are the things to imitate." And then he said something even more damning. "The last few years, it's always the same. First the players, then the coaching staff changes, and it's always the same people responsible. Hopefully they realize who the true responsible ones are, and we move forward because it's a beautiful club that, with the structure it has, could easily be competing for the title every year." I do love how he just kind of frames the board like it's the government deep state, but his concerns are very much 100% valid. And when your vice captain is saying this shit, that's really concerning. Again though, this isn't anything new, because Chairman Daniel Levy is way too cautious with the way he runs this club. Since he started in 2001, he's used a very pragmatic approach to sustainability, which includes a strict wage bill that makes it even harder to attract top players. And when it comes to buying players, he's incredibly stubborn, and it's resulted in him missing out on plenty of studs. Back in 2018, Spurs were close to signing Jack Grealish, but Levy kept dilly-dallying with the bids as he was using Villa's financial troubles as leverage in the deal. But then to everyone's surprise, Villa were taken over by new owners, and the deal was off soon after. And I mean, you can't really blame him entirely, but Josh Onoma plus 3 million is an insult to this beautiful game. Okay, then what about last season when Spurs spent nearly 300 million? Explain that, liberal. Summer 2023 definitely showed some rare proactivity from the ownership. James Madison, Mickey van de Ven, Brennan Johnson, Pedro Porro, Dejan Kulusevski, Guillermo Vicario. In retrospect, this is probably Spurs' best window since 2015-16. But that was all because Harry Kane was sold for 95 million. Now compare that to this summer, where Spurs' biggest sale was Oliver Skipp for 23 million. And we are back to Levy's extremely cautious and conservative money management, which is the reason Spurs find themselves in this crisis to begin with. And Spurs tend to do this thing where they only act when the crucial player leaves. Even though Harry Kane had been showing signs that he wanted to leave, Spurs never thought to, I don't know, buy someone for the future or the near future. In fact, it wasn't until a year after Kane left that Spurs finally bought themselves a striker. The core problem with Spurs throughout the last couple decades is Daniel Levy and the way he treats Tottenham more like a business asset than a football club. Always profit over performance, which to his credit has made Spurs become a very healthy business. But that's it. A business, not a football club. But going forward in the short term at least, I think Spurs will be alright. The club is still sticking with Ange, which is a much wiser idea than whatever the fuck Manchester United just did. And also, the players who are injured currently will be soon returning. But if Spurs really want to be serious about this rebuild, their owners have to be consistently committed to it. Otherwise, it'll just be the same never-ending circle of failure for this club. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, including Janos Balas, Chupas, Brazilian Fury, Respect the Jeff, Othman JN, Habakkuk, Jeremiah Owusu Ajiman, Django, Sexy Asian Diddler, Anazir Makalangkom, Alex Rod, Ulta, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kid, Sniffix, Taco Fan, The Cypriot 35, Not Windows 95 Man, Kentra Agatra, Big Boris, The Baby Eater the Second, Kerbo, Unkwell, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Ryan Jens, Wise Orange, Rashford Enthusiast, Cocosaurus Rex, LeJames Bronze, Samu, Just MRC, Cheesebait, Cooper Ruri, The Somali Pirate, Claymore Roomba, Winder Gel, M4 Does Stuff, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portugizer, TPSK25, Polar Protos, Van Fan, Lucien Von Croix, Ethan Bella Loves Kavicha, Gazagos Breshakivix, Mano Tango Fei, Adrian, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Muntanai, Nava, Sketchy Card, KM89, Apollo, Kevin Mojica, Chris Visconti, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Kress, Mohammed Altanib, Niche, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry L, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member of the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my Twitch if you want as well, but until then, I'll see you guys.